Year's Eve, 11:45 p.m., the Finch cabin by Lake Tahoe resonated with the joyous sounds of 25 relatives, their countdown toasts mingling with the delicate clinking of glasses. My parents stood with an air of authority, their presence commanding attention. Tonight, we were about to present Zinnia with her final gift, Disowned. A collective gasp swept through the table, a wave of shock and disbelief washing over everyone. Ryder leaned forward, a sneer twisting his features into a mask of contempt. "You earned this one, sis," he spat out, his words dripping with venom. I raised my glass slowly, my movements deliberate and controlled. "Thanks," I replied, my voice betraying none of the turmoil raging within. Then, I set it down untouched, the liquid shimmering in the lamplight, and walked straight out the door, the echoing thud of my boots, a stark counterpoint to the festive atmosphere. "Hi, I'm Zinnia Finch, 32, the bartender they just cut off," I thought to myself, a bitter smile playing on my lips. They have no clue what I did right after. If family ever humiliated you at the table, type "been there" and subscribe. Tomorrow's twist will hit hard. From a young age, the Finch family had operated under a single, unwavering rule: succeed or stay silent. My father, Clifford Finch, had meticulously constructed a chain of 5 boutique resorts scattered across Nevada and California. He began with a humble motel in Reno, painstakingly flipped it, expanded his holdings, and by the age of 50, his name was emblazoned on brochures advertising luxury getaways. Guests willingly paid exorbitant prices for breathtaking cliffside views and private spas. He wore success like a perfectly tailored suit, always crisp, always exuding an air of unwavering control. My mother, Magnolia Finch, pursued a career that revolved around the very essence of life: hearts. As a cardiothoracic surgeon at Reno's leading hospital, she routinely saved lives before breakfast and presided over medical boards by lunchtime. Her schedule adhered to a rigid clockwork precision. OR at 6, rounds at 9 o'clock, home by 7 if no emergencies, she'd often say, her words clipped and efficient. Precision defined her existence, and she expected nothing less from us. Then there was my younger brother, Ryder. At the young age of 25, he already carried the family torch with unwavering determination. Fresh out of Wharton, he had secured a coveted junior analyst role at a prestigious private equity firm in San Francisco. During his first year, he single-handedly sourced a deal that transformed a failing tech startup into a $10 million exit. Dad proudly framed the closing documents and displayed them prominently in his office. Mom never missed an opportunity to brag to her colleagues. Ryder, of course, reveled in the attention. I, on the other hand, graduated with a degree in hospitality economics from Cornell. I secured internships at 4-star properties, placing in the top 10% of my class. I possessed a comprehensive understanding of revenue management, guest experience, and yield optimization. Naturally, I applied for an entry-level operations role at one of Dad's resorts, the Sierra Ridge location in Tahoe. I meticulously submitted my resume through the internal portal, carefully tailoring my cover letter and highlighting my multilingual skills. Ryder saw it first. He forwarded my application to Dad with a terse note. "We don't need a bartender here." Dad called HR that afternoon. "Remove Zinnia Finch from the candidate pool." Effective immediately. No explanation, no interview. Just erased from consideration. That night, at a family dinner in the main lodge, Dad raised a toast to Ryder's latest bonus. "To the future of Finch Resorts," he declared, his voice booming with pride. Mom smiled approvingly. Ryder grinned smugly. I sat in silence, my emotions carefully concealed. Later, Mom pulled me aside. "Ryder closed a $10 million deal at 25. What have you closed, Zinnia?" Her tone wasn't cruel, just factual. In her world, numbers spoke louder than effort, achievements measured in dollars and cents. I took the bartender job at Lakeside Lounge instead. Night shifts, tips and cash, drunk skiers, bachelorette parties, locals who tipped big for a good story. I mixed perfect old fashions, spoke Spanish to the valet crew, French to European guests, and listened. Really listened. People told me their plans, their deals, their secrets over whiskey. Dad found out 6 months in. He showed up unannounced during a slow Tuesday. Watched me shake a martini, wipe the bar, smile at a regular. On the drive home, he said, "This reflects on all of us. You're 32. Act like it." Mom agreed. "We raised you for boardrooms, not bar stools." Ryder sent a group text the next week. A photo of him signing papers in a glass office caption, another W. He added, "Keep pouring, sis." I left the chat, but Aunt Beatrice Finch, Dad's younger sister, saw it differently. She called me that same night from her condo in Carson City. "Zenaya," she said, her voice warm but firm. "You have talent. Real talent. Don't let them snuff it out." She had owned a small inn years ago, sold it profitably, and lived quietly. She understood the game. They'll try to shrink you to fit their box. Don't fold. I didn't tell her about the late night studying profit and loss statements from bar sales, or how I'd started tracking guest patterns, upselling premium liquor, boosting tips 20%. I didn't mention the notebook where I sketched resort improvement ideas, ones Dad would never read. Because in the Finch family, if you weren't Ryder, you were background noise. 8 months earlier, a Friday night rush at Lakeside Lounge hit peak chaos. The bar overflowed with skiers in neon jackets, locals unwinding after long weeks, and a corporate group celebrating a fresh merger. Orders flew non-stop Negronis with perfect twists, espresso martinis topped with foam art, straight shots of premium tequila lined up for toasts. Saffron Sky, my coworker and the only person who truly had my back behind the wood, handled the beer taps with quick pulls while I shook cocktails in rhythm. Bass-heavy music thumped through the speakers. Tips stacked high in the jar, mostly 20s from generous tables. Then Mr. Laurent Dubois walked in, suit sharp despite the late flight. As CEO of Dubois Hospitality Group based in Paris, he had pitched a partnership to Finch Resorts 2 years prior. Dad rejected it outright, claiming the terms tilted too heavily toward European control. Dubois never forgot the slight. He had reserved the private VIP lounge for his executive team, confirmed via email twice that week, but the hostess botched the schedule. A loud bachelor party claimed the space first, blasting playlists and spilling drinks. Dubois stormed straight to the bar, face flushed under the dim pendant lights. "This is unacceptable," he snapped in thickly accented English. "I fly across the Atlantic for this treatment." His assistants hovered close, already pulling out phones to search competing venues nearby. I wiped my hands on a towel, switched seamlessly to French. He paused, mid-sentence, eyebrows raised at the fluent Parisian cadence. I explained the booking mix-up in detail, apologized again with genuine regret, then proposed the rooftop terrace, officially closed for winter, but equipped with portable heaters, panoramic lake views, and total privacy. I'll personally curate a menu inspired by Provence. The upgrade comes at no extra charge. He studied me for a beat. "You speak like you grew up in the 6th arrondissement." I smiled. "1 semester in Lyon, but close enough." That broke the ice. He nodded agreement. I signaled Saffron to take over the main bar, grabbed a passing server, and led the group upstairs. In under 20 minutes, we transformed the space. String lights flicked on, heaters roared to life. High-top tables were reset with linen cloths pulled from storage. For the menu, I improvised with what the kitchen could deliver fast. Lavender-infused gin fizz using house syrup I'd experimented with earlier that week. Ratatouille flatbreads sliced into elegant triangles. Charcuterie boards featuring imported saucisson, cornichons, and cheeses I kept for upscale specials. Dubois sipped the first cocktail, eyes closing briefly in approval. His team loosened ties, laughter returning. Conversation drifted naturally to expansion plans. Dubois wanted U.S. mountain properties to complement his European portfolio. By midnight, a draft term sheet sat on the table. A $15 million joint venture. Dubois injects capital for major renovations at 2 underperforming Finch locations. We managed daily operations and branding. He reviewed clauses, made 2 minor tweaks, then signed with a flourish. I witnessed as the official representative on site. Handshake sealed it. Photos for internal records only. The next morning, Dubois composed an email to the entire Finch Resorts board. "Last night, your bartender, Zenaya Finch, rescued a critical error and turned it into opportunity. Her language skills, quick thinking, and hospitality instincts are exceptional. I recommend immediate, deeper collaboration." Dad received the forward during his Saturday strategy session at headquarters. He phoned me mid-afternoon, voice tight. "Zenaya, explain this email." I walked him through the sequence calmly. Double booking, French intervention, terrace pivot, signed deal. He interrupted halfway. "A bartender doesn't represent the Finch name. Stay in your lane and let professionals handle contracts." No praise for the save. No curiosity about revenue impact. Just shut down. Ryder fired off a text an hour later. Cute stunt. Bar girl doesn't move the needle. Mom followed with a clipped voicemail. Focus on something that actually matters to the family legacy. I played the messages for Aunt Beatrice over coffee at her quiet condo the following Sunday. She scanned the printed email, lips pressing into a thin line, then handed it back. You did right, she texted immediately after I left. Don't let them snuff it out, Zanea. This is your proof they can't erase what you build. After closing the bar that night, I locked the doors, dimmed the lights, and sat on a stool to count the evening's tips under the glow of the neon sign. My phone vibrated against the wood. 2:17 a.m. Unknown Reno number notification. Rupert Ward, CEO, Sierra Summit Resorts. Subject line, Dubois, reference urgent opportunity. I opened it immediately. Miss Zanea Finch, Lauren Dubois mentioned your name during a strategy session with me this afternoon. He detailed your intervention at Lakeside Lounge and insisted I contact you. Sierra Summit seeks a director of guest relations with your exact profile. Interested? Reply for next steps. Discretion assured. I read it 3 times. Sierra Summit operated 20 premium mountain resorts, a direct rival to Dad's portfolio. Their properties pulled higher occupancy year-round. I replied, available for discussion. A video link arrived within minutes. I accepted. Rupert Ward filled the screen, silver hair trimmed neat, eyes piercing behind rimless glasses. Office backdrop showing Reno's casino lights. Dubois rarely endorses anyone, he started. He said, you speak 4 languages, fluently resolve crises under pressure, and secure deals most executives fumble. Confirm. I nodded. Schedule round 1. All interviews remained confidential, conducted via secure platforms. No company branding visible. Round 1 focused on a case study. Rupert shared encrypted files. Our Vail property faces 15% revenue decline post-pandemic. Diagnose root causes and propose a 90-day turnaround. I dissected data occupancy dips, guest feedback scores, competitor pricing, identified overdependence on ski season, weak midweek bookings, suggested targeted corporate retreats, wellness packages with local spas, dynamic pricing algorithms. He probed margins, ROI projections. I countered with spreadsheets prepped in my head. Round 2 shifted to crisis simulation. Live scenario over Zoom with 2 actors posing as staff. Avalanche warning issued. 200 guests on site. Power grid failing. Media vans arriving. Act. I prioritize safety protocols. Evacuate to base lodge. Activate generators. Coordinate with county emergency teams. Switch to Spanish for a panicked family group. German for international press handled a simulated injury report, comped future stays to diffuse social media threats. Rupert introduced twist supply chain delay on food VIP demanding helicopter extraction. I adapted delegated documented. Round 3 tested multilingual execution. Panel of 4 senior directors joined. Pitch our planned Zerat expansion to a room of Parisian investors. I delivered a 10-minute presentation in native French market analysis, cultural synergy projected 5-year cash flow, seamless transition to Italian for Q&A on logistics. They fired rapid Japanese questions on supply chain. I responded without hesitation. Final curveball, negotiate a mock concession in Mandarin. Past round 4 required travel. Neutral Marriott in Sacramento, private suite. Rupert alone, no assistance. Why pivot from bartending to executive? I outlined Cornell hospitality degree. Blocked internal applications. Self-taught revenue hacks at the bar. Upsold premium spirits. 30% reduced waste. 12. He listened. Flipped through my portfolio of guest recovery stories. Slid an envelope across. Offer package. Director of Guest Relations. $290,000 base annually. Plus 7% equity vested over European expansion projects. Comprehensive benefits. Relocation stipend. Immediate start option post-holidays. I scanned clauses non-compete tailored narrow performance bonuses tied to guest satisfaction metrics. This exceeds expectations, I said. He leaned forward. Dubois pushed sign if committed. I took the pen, initialed every page signed at the bottom. duplicate copy for my records. Drove directly to Aunt Beecheckett's condo in Carson City, contract folded in my purse. She brewed tea, sat me down, read every line under lamplight. Eyes widened at compensation, lingered on equity terms. "Keep it quiet," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "This is your chance, Sinea. No announcements until you're untouchable." I followed her advice, stored originals in a locked fire safe, deleted email threads, practiced my new signature on scrap paper, counted days, New Year's Eve. The clock struck midnight at the cabin. Fireworks cracked open the sky above the iced lake colors bleeding into black water. Inside the great room, 25 relatives hushed mid-cheer champagne flutes frozen halfway to lips. The pine table still held platters of carved ribeye garlic potatoes cooling and 3 open magnums sweating rings onto the wood. My father rose first, suit jacket unbuttoned, cufflinks catching firelight. He lifted his glass higher than necessary. "The Finch family no longer has a daughter named Zinea." He stated, words slicing clean through the crackle of the hearth. "Tonight ends that chapter." A collective inhale sucked the oxygen from the room. Silverware clinked against china. Someone's phone slipped to the floor. Aunt Beatrice folded her napkin once, eyes flicking to me. Mom kept her gaze fixed on the centerpiece, fingers curled tight around crystal. Ryder's jaw slackened, color draining to chalk. I set my flute down, untouched bubbles still climbing the stem. "Thank you for the freedom," I answered, voice level, almost conversational. Pushed my chair back, legs scraped hardwood. Stood, walked the length of the table without hurry. Coat hung on the entry rack. I slid arms into wool sleeves, buttoned from bottom to top. Boots waited in a neat row. Black leather laces tight. I tied each knot with deliberate pulls. No one moved. No one spoke. A cousin half rose, then sank. The fire popped, sending sparks up the chimney. I opened the front door. Arctic air rushed in, swirling snow across the threshold like salt. Stepped onto the porch, closed the door behind me, soft click final. Snow fell thick and sideways, wind whipping strands from my braid. I followed the plowed path, boot, sinking half deep in drifts. I reached the SUV, brushed powder from the handle, with gloved fingers climbed in. Key turned. Engine growled awake. Heat blasted from vents. Wipers swept in wide arcs, clearing the windshield. I backed out slowly, tires crunching packed ice. Headlights carved tunnels through the blizzard as I navigated the first switchback. That morning, before the 3-hour drive to Tahoe, I'd met Robert in a discreet Reno notary suite. Signed the Sierra Summit contract on a polished oak table. He witnessed, date-stamped, slid certified copies into a leather folder. "Director Finch," he said, handshake firm. Apartment keys on a brass ring. Start date sealed. January 2nd. Now descending the mountain, I eased onto a turnout. Cut the lights. Let the engine idle. Snow muffled every sound. I pulled my phone. No bars yet. Typed a draft to Aunt Beatrice. "It's done. On the road." Saved. Signal flickered at the next bend. Sent. Her reply buzzed instantly. "Drive safe. Call from the city." I continued down past the final cluster of cabins. Their windows glowing gold. I hit the valley highway. Plows had cleared lanes to bare asphalt. I cruised at 50. Defroster on high, radio silent. Reno limits appeared by 1:42 a.m. Casinos loomed neon against the storm streets deserted. I turned into the underground garage of the company tower. Parked in reserved slots, stenciled Z Finch. Elevator to 12. Key card beeped. Door opened to darkness. Hit switches, recessed LEDs warmed the open floor plan. Kitchen island gleamed quartz. Bedroom overlooked the frozen River City lights smudged by flakes. I dropped overnight bag. Kicked boots onto the mat. Poured filtered water from the welcome pitcher. Sat on the sectional contract folder on the ottoman. Opened it. My signature stared back. Black ink decisive. I smiled, small private. Slept in fresh sheets. Alarm set for 7:30. Woke to pale sun sneaking past blackout curtains. Showered in rainfall marble. Dressed in the slate suit pressed overnight. Brewed coffee in the built-in machine. Dark roast. No sugar. Drove the 5 minutes to headquarters. Security waved through the gate. Elevator to executive level. Badge scanned green. Office door red. Zinnia Finch, Director of Guest Relations, sat at the L-shaped desk. Powered dual monitors. Inbox loaded welcome from HR or chart calendar invites. First meeting 8:30 Team Sync. Clicked Rupert's note orientation packet attached. Glad you're aboard. Leaned back. The smile grew. 2 days later, I drove to Sierra Summit headquarters in Reno, the glass tower mirroring fresh white snow against a pale sky. Here, I was no longer the Finch daughter. Valet took my keys at the port cozer. Security desk issued my permanent badge. Director Zinnia Finch photo crisp magnetic strip encoded. Clipped it to my blazer. Elevator whispered to the executive floor. Office weighted floor-to-ceiling windows. Ergonomic setup. Dual screens. Glowing welcome. Nameplate centered on the desk. I unpacked. Laptop notebook. Single-framed photo of Lake Tahoe at sunset. Sat inhaled new leather scent. HR escorted me to orientation. Rupert greeted in the atrium. Reddy led me through Department Revenue Marketing Operations. Introductions. Rapid Zinnia Heads Guest Relations. Handshakes. Business cards. Quick bios. No one referenced competitors. First task. Inherit Q4 guest feedback database. Open dashboards. Color-coded heat maps. Sentiment trends. Verbatim comments. Flagged recurring themes. Slow valet. Inconsistent concierge spa booking glitches. Phone vibrated text from my father, don't come home again. Screenshot attached family group chat banning my number. Mom added, you chose this WeTrader. I archived blocked thread Saffron FaceTimed from Lakeside Lounge mid-shift. Show me, I panned the office. She squealed badge and all, you deserve this Z, every drop. Bartenders behind her raised glasses. Saved the video, settled into workflow. Drafted audit plan site visits to 3 property staff interviews. Mystery shopper program scheduled for next week. Rupert approved via Slack. Proceed lunch in the Executive Cafe grilled salmon. Quinoa Mountain View colleagues discussed Q1 targets. I contributed multilingual campaign ideas. Noted afternoon deep dive loyalty program overhaul, current tier system outdated, proposed dynamic points partner airlines. Exclusive events modeled projected 20% retention lift emailed prototype to marketing lead. 4 p.m. Aunt Beatrice rang from her garden line. How's the kingdom? I described the badge. The view. She chuckled. This is your new beginning, child. Own it. Promised lunch soon. Left at 6:30. Drove to the apartment, 12th floor. City lights flickering on. Cooked stir-fry. Opened a bottle of Pinot from the welcome basket. Reviewed European project briefs. Equity vesting calendar highlighted. Slept solid. Woke at 6. Gym in the building treadmill overlooking the river. Showered. Dressed sharp charcoal pantsuit. Badge clipped. Day 2 team huddle. 8 direct reports via video property managers from Aspen to B. Outlined vision, seamless guest journey. 0 friction. Assigned action items. Closed with metrics dashboard share. Mid-morning crisis. VIP cancellation storm at Tahoe flagship. Rebooked to private chalet comp helicopter transfer personalized itinerary. Guest emailed thanks within the hour. Forwarded to Rupert noon. Saffron texted photo her new cocktail named the Finch Flip. Your legacy lives. Laughed out loud. Afternoon vendor sync new linen supplier. Negotiated rates down 8% sustainability clause added. Signed digitally. 5 p.m. Rupert dropped by feedback loops tight. Board wants quarterly preview. Set date. Drove home through dusk. Stopped for groceries. Fresh herb salmon steaks. Apartment felt lived in mail on the counter. Shoes by the door. Aunt Beatrice visited Saturday. Toured the space. Approved the balcony. Better than any resort suite. Cooked pasta together. She left with leftovers hug lingering weeks blurred. Implemented express check-in chain-wide. Wait times dropped 21%. NPS jumped 11 points. Bonus hit account. Family silence absolute. Aunt Beatrice only bridge. 3 months later, the Sierra Leadership Retreat in Orlando unfolded under palm trees and Florida sun. The convention center buzzed with 200 attendees, executives in linen suits, name tags glinting under recessed lights, coffee stations steaming with fresh brews. I arrived at dawn badge, clipped high tablet loaded with keynote slides and contingency plans. Oversaw final checks registration kiosks, synced breakout rooms, stocked with notepads, and branded pens. VIP lounges chilled to exact 72 degrees. My mother had accepted a medical keynote invitation weeks earlier, honored for her cardiothoracic innovations, unaware I now ran guest relations here. Ryder tagged along as her +1, flashing his finance badge for networking. Aunt Beatrice registered separately under independent guest flight booked on her own dime. Opening sessions ran on military precision. I moderated the first panel on crisis recovery, fielding questions on multilingual protocols and real-time sentiment tracking. Attendees scribbled furiously. Rupert circulated the floor, introducing me as the architect behind our NPS surge. Mid-morning break, fruit platters, yogurt parfaits. I reviewed seating charts, ensured dietary flags matched gluten-free stations, labeled vegan options, abundant, adjusted one table for a wheelchair delegate. Lunch buffet stretched across the promenade, citrus poached shrimp mango salsa. Key lime stations dripping condensation. I mingled strategically swapped LinkedIn QR codes. Deflected subtle competitor probes with practiced smiles. Collected 3 verbal commitments for cross-property partnerships. Afternoon general session packed the grand ballroom, crystal chandeliers, dim stage washed in corporate blue. 200 seats filled, murmur rising like surf. Rupert took the podium at 3 sharp, tie knot perfect. Before we honor innovation awards, he announced voice amplified 1, promotion demands recognition. Spotlight pivoted. My professional headshot filled the jumbotron taken during onboarding, navy blazer, confident gaze. Please welcome our new Director of Guest Relations, Zinaya Finch. Applause thundered. I rose from front row center, walked the carpeted aisle, heels clicking marble in measured rhythm. Accepted the microphone from Rupert. I'm honored to lead experiences that define Sierra Summit's future, I said, 30 seconds flat voice projecting clear. Handed the mic back amid continued cheers. Scan the sea of faces. Row 3. Aisle seat. My mother froze mid-clap, program slipping from manicured fingers to the floor. Ryder beside her went rigid, face draining to parchment under the LEDs. Aunt Beatrix, seated 5 rows behind in a coral jacket, nodded once, eyes shining unmistakable pride. I returned to my seat through a gauntlet of handshakes and shoulder pats. Session resumed, revenue forecasts, AI integration demos. My mother's keynote followed at 4, advances in robotic valve repair. She delivered flawlessly, slides crisp, voice modulated, no glance my direction. Professional to the core. Coffee break chaos. Attendees swarmed for selfies with speakers. I slipped backstage, reviewed evening gala logistics, string quartet tuned to a 440 menu, cards printed in gold foil, dietary icons color-coded. Confirmed allergy protocols with the chef's separate prep stations, epinephrine kits on standby. Ryder cornered me near the service corridor, voice harsh whisper. This your revenge play? Eyes darted. I met his stare evenly. This is my career. He muttered something incoherent, stormed toward the exit. My mother approached during cocktail hour, on the terrace, champagne flute untouched in her hand. Director's single word tone clinical. Congratulations on the title, I replied. She nodded once, sharp, pivoted away without another syllable. Aunt Beatrice found me by the potted palms. Saw their expressions, she murmured, squeezing my elbow. You earned every decibel of that applause. Quick hug, then melted back into the crowd. Gala dinner commenced at 7, filet mignon, with Borders truffle risotto, wine pairings from Napa Partners. I table hopped, systematically toasted regional teams, collected verbal feedback on mobile app glitches, promised fixes by Q2. Rupert pulled me aside near the dessert station. European launch committee needs you. Zerat flagship accepted on the spot. Dessert service, individual chocolate soulettes, raspberry coulis lights, dimmed for closing montage, guest testimonial reels. NPS graphs climbing 11 points. My express check-in pilot featured in 30-second clips. Cheers swelled again. Event wrapped at 10:30. Shuttle buses idled, curbside engines humming. I oversaw tear-down tablecloths folded into laundry bins, AV cables, coiled tip envelopes distributed to staff. Final walkthrough of the empty ballroom at midnight. Echoes of applause still ghosting the rafters. Phone buzzed in my clutch. Aunt Beatrice proud. That doesn't even begin to cover it. Replied with a single heart emoji. Took the red-eye home. Landed in Reno at 6 a.m. Drove straight to HQ. Debriefed with Rupert at 9. Retreat NPS hit 92. The highest it's ever been. Promotion letter finalized. Equity grant updated. Sat at my desk. Orlando program on the blotter. My mother's bio page was dog-eared. I closed it and opened the next project file. 1 year after Orlando, the headlines hit my feed during a morning briefing. Finch Resorts was teetering on bankruptcy due to over-leveraged expansions. Post-pandemic debt occupancy cratered 30%. My father liquidated 2 flagship properties, Sierra Ridge in Tahoe and the Reno Boutique. Buyers were anonymous, terms were sealed, and staff was reassigned or let go. I read the press release at my desk while my coffee cooled. No shock, no satisfaction, just data points in a competitor analysis I'd already modeled. Rupert forwarded the article. Opportunity, I replied. Monitor for distressed assets. Sierra Summit stayed the course, NPS at 95. European launches on track. Ryder quit first. LinkedIn update, pursuing new ventures. No details given. His office was emptied. Overnight, his nameplate was gone. My mother requested an indefinite sabbatical from the hospital, cited burnout, and moved to a coastal condo in Half Moon Bay. Aunt Beatrice called from her kitchen. Heard the news, you okay? I confirmed I was neutral. They built their storm, but I'm in clear skies. Cut contact completely. Deleted old threads. Blocked residuals. Archived childhood photos. 100% severance. Aunt Beatrice remained. Monthly lunches. Encrypted texts. No overlap with the past. The board meeting that week discussed the acquisition play. I presented valuation models. Undervalued land. Salvageable brands. Rupert greenlit due diligence. Your insights are unique, he noted. Weeks later, the asset purchase closed. Sierra Summit absorbed the 2 resorts at 40 cents on the dollar. Rebranded under our umbrella. Renovations budgeted. Staff rehired with equity incentives. My father's name vanished from brochures. Ryder surfaced in startup news but failed his seed round. My mother's sabbatical was extended indefinitely. I felt neither joy nor sorrow. Equilibrium. Aunt Beatrice visited the new Tahoe property post-relaunch. She walked the lobby where the marble was polished, the concierge multilingual, and express check-in kiosks were humming. This was yours all along, she said. I shrugged. Now it's everyone's. The lesson crystallized over time. Family isn't always home. Only those who believe in you through the storm deserve to stay. I lived it daily. I mentored juniors, sponsored scholarships, and built teams on merit. Equity vested, 7 figures projected. My apartment was upgraded to a penthouse with permanent lake views. Aunt Beatrice remained my only family tie. Holidays at her condo. Turkey, small laughter, real. That doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of it. I responded with a simple heart emoji, hopped on the red-eye flight back home. Touchdown in Reno at 6 in the morning. Went straight to headquarters. Debriefed with Rupert at 9 o'clock. The retreat's Net Promoter Score, NPS, hit 92, the highest it had ever been. The promotion letter was finalized, and the equity grant was updated. I took my seat at my desk. The Orlando program was front and center. My mother's biography page had a dog-eared corner. I shut it down and pulled up the next project file. Exactly 1 year after the Orlando situation, the headline showed up in my newsfeed during a morning briefing session. Finch Resorts was on the brink of declaring bankruptcy because of overly aggressive expansions, financed with too much debt. The post-pandemic debt burden was crushing them, and occupancy rates had plummeted by 30%. My father was forced to sell off 2 of their premier properties, Sierra Ridge in Tahoe and the Reno Boutique Hotel. The buyers wanted to remain anonymous, the details of the deal were kept secret, and employees were either reassigned to other locations or were laid off. I read the press release while sitting at my desk, letting my coffee get cold. There was no feeling of shock, no sense of satisfaction, just data points to be fed into a competitor analysis I had already constructed. Rupert pinged me the article. Opportunity, I shot back. Keep an eye on any distressed assets that might become available. Sierra Summit stayed right on course, NPS at 95, European launches moving forward as planned. Ryder was the first one to bail. His LinkedIn profile was updated, exploring new opportunities. No further specifics were given. His office was completely emptied out. Overnight, his nameplate was gone. My mother requested an extended sabbatical from the hospital, citing extreme burnout as the reason, and relocated to a condo on the coast in Half Moon Bay. Aunt Beatrice rang me up from her kitchen. "I heard what happened. Are you doing okay?" I told her I felt completely neutral about the situation. They created their own disaster, and I'm enjoying clear skies. I terminated all contact completely. I erased all old message threads. I blocked any residual connections. I archived all my childhood photos. 100% severance of ties. Aunt Beatrice was the only one who remained. Monthly lunches, encrypted text messages. No overlapping with the past. The board meeting that week included a discussion of potential acquisition strategies. I presented valuation models, focusing on undervalued land and brands that could still be salvaged. Rupert gave the go-ahead for the due diligence process. "Your insights are truly unique," he commented. A few weeks later, the asset purchase was finalized. Sierra Summit absorbed the 2 resorts for 40 cents on the dollar. Rebranded under our company's banner. Budgeted for renovations. Rehired staff with new equity incentive packages. My father's name was erased from all marketing materials. Writer popped up in startup news, but didn't get past the seed funding round. My mother's sabbatical was extended indefinitely. I didn't experience any joy or any sadness. Just a state of equilibrium. Aunt Beatrice paid a visit to the newly revamped Tahoe property after the grand reopening. She walked through the lobby, noticing the gleaming polished marble, the multilingual concierge staff, and the smoothly operating express check-in kiosks. "This was always meant to be yours," she remarked. I just shrugged my shoulders. "Now it belongs to everyone." The lesson that I learned became clearer and clearer over time. Family isn't always a place of safety and belonging. Only the people who believe in you and support you through the toughest times are the ones who deserve to stay in your life. I lived that truth every single day. I mentored junior colleagues, sponsored scholarships, and built up strong teams based on merit. The equity vested, projecting a 7-figure income. I upgraded my apartment to a penthouse with unobstructed views of the lake. Aunt Beatrice was the only family I stayed connected with. Holidays spent at her condo. A small Thanksgiving turkey, gentle laughter, a quick reel on Instagram.